Folks, good afternoon. Dave Craven, Senior Vice President, Fidelity Bank. I am also a board member for EDPNC. It is my privilege to introduce to you our next speaker, Mr. Nathan Ramsey. Nathan, you are going to be reluctant to find out that I had a large, long speech prepared to welcome you today. I was handed this, told to keep it brief, so we're going to roll with it. Nathan Ramsey serves as the Director for the Mountain Area Workforce Development Board. He's formerly a business representative for the North Carolina Department of Commerce. Nathan served in the State House of Representatives from 2013 to 2014, representing the fine people in District 115, and was chair of the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners from 2000 to 2008. Nathan's top priority is to help employees in the region meet their workforce needs. I'd also like to point out that Nathan's wife, Robin, is here with us today. Robin, thank you for being here. And at this time, I'd like to give a warm welcome Nathan Ramsey, everyone.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. It's a great honor. I've got a lot of my bosses are in the house, so I need to give a shout out to them. They mentioned my wife, Robin, is here, and I'll have a workforce reference about her a little later on. So if I'm looking for a place to stay tonight, please help me out. Also, some of the Mountain Area board members are here. My COG director is here. So if I don't have a job tomorrow, you'll know I did a poor job at today's presentation. So again, thank you for allowing us to be here. Our state motto is Esse quam videre, to be rather than to seem. I think oftentimes in workforce development, we have misperceptions, and I hope today you'll hear that oftentimes there are more that unites us than divides us, and that our urban and rural areas are truly interconnected, whether we like that or not. And so, how can we come up with the solutions to help those in our rural communities? And but those in our urban communities oftentimes have the same challenges. So I'm not a workforce development expert. I will stipulate that at the beginning. I was raised on a dairy farm. My family still has a dairy farm. We're one of about 150 or so in North Carolina now. There were over 1,000 in the late 1980s. So that just means those of us who are still in the dairy business are willing to work cheap. And so I don't have may not be a workforce development expert, but I do have some rural connection. My wife told me in 2009, you're working 80 hours a week. It'd be nice if you got a paying job. And as you can tell by my introduction, I've been fired many times. So here's our dairy farm in western North Carolina. You see the mountains. Earlier there was a reference to eastern North Carolina, and I will agree that I do lower the median IQ and for the folks in the west, but I do enjoy both Eastern style and Western style barbecue, and but I will. It is a fact that those of us in the West are a little closer to heaven than those in other parts of the state. I am not saying that those in the other parts of the state are closer to the other place. So here's I think the last cow picture of the presentation. And the cows say, drink more milk. They need a job. And so if you drink milk, they are employed. So overall, the sun is shining on North Carolina. Things are going very well for our state in many metrics. We're creating lots of jobs. We're one of the fastest growing states in the country. Our urban economies are vibrant. There was a point in time where I think Asheville downtown had more cranes than Raleigh. That's not the case now, but a lot of great things are happening, and you see those cranes dotted across our landscape. And so it's a boom time in EDP, North Carolina, Department of Commerce, the governor, so many other partners. You guys are doing too good a job, because look at all the accolades that are coming our way, and one of the top states to do business by many other metrics. And so if we think of our workforce development strengths, North Carolina, and Dr. Leatherwood told me I needed to mention the community colleges, and certainly I would do that because we have one of the best community college systems in the country. About 1 in 9 residents over age 18 are enrolled as a student, And every North Carolinian is within 30 minutes of a community college campus. Our UNC system is certainly one of the better public university systems in the country. Our higher ed is relatively affordable, near the lowest tuition in the nation. And we have many, despite the challenges, we have great work happening in our K-12 schools all across the state. And in North Carolina, to our credit, we still have great disparities in funding, but the state does put a lot more money into our low-wealth schools than many other states. So, what's the problem? And you guys understand this. In many respects, rural North Carolina hasn't recovered the job losses from the Great Recession. So you can see Charlotte and Raleigh are well above the peak from 2007, 2008. The secondary metros are doing okay, but have somewhat recovered in many cases, but non-metro North Carolina hasn't. And here's a graphic from the rural center of the rural counties in North Carolina, of those 80 counties, and you can see county job growth for the last decade. The more reddish hue would mean negative, and the bluer hue would mean positive. So there's a lot of red out there. And if you can see from the pre-recession peak to 2017, apologize for the different colors, but the more greenish color is positive, and the more closer to brown is negative. And so you can see a lot of counties are struggling. And so that's what we hear all the time of all the problems in rural North Carolina. And when I was doing this presentation, this quote came into my mind. So it's ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know that for sure that just ain't so. I thought that was Mark Twain, but after doing some research, Google and Wikipedia and all that kind of stuff, have determined we don't know who the author of that was, but I think that is true, so we need to stop. And so if you're on the ferry from Fort Fisher to Southport, you might see that. And so before this presentation, I want you to know that anything I say, I don't want to diminish the pain and the scars and the agony. I know it was mentioned by Assistant Superintendent Sutton, what happened in Rutherford County. We think of, Pilatex, largest bankruptcy in one day, 4,000 people lost their jobs. And so we know there, our textile, tobacco, and furniture industries, many of those industries, we lost a lot of jobs. And you see in 1990, we had over 800,000 manufacturing jobs in North Carolina. At the low point after the Great Recession, we were down to 428,000. We've added over 50,000 manufacturing jobs in North Carolina since that time, but we're still well below the peak. So while every North Carolina county is different, and this is, the big takeaway, and here's a quote out of the News and Observer. It's from the Economic Development Director in Scotland County. At that time, in 2016, Scotland County had the highest unemployment rate in the state. As of May 2018, Scotland County still has the highest unemployment rate in the state at 7.5%. And his quote was, "There are jobs, just no one to fill them." And so from that standpoint, I would argue rural North Carolina and urban North Carolina have more in common than what separates us. Certainly rural communities may not have the resources that some of the larger counties. If you're in Wake, Mecklenburg, even Buncombe, 1 penny on your tax rate is a lot more than if you're in Madison or Graham or Northampton or smaller counties. But look at rural North Carolina. Right now, as of April, 5 of the 10 lowest unemployment counties in North Carolina were rural counties. We think of employer difficulty. This came from North Carolina Department of Commerce through their, and I want to give them a shout out for a lot of this data that I'm presenting to you. 46% of employers in rural communities mentioned that they had difficulty of meeting their workforce needs, and that's compared to pretty comparable to Raleigh and Charlotte, the large metros and other MSAs in North Carolina. So the fact is, there are many employers in rural North Carolina that have good paying jobs that they cannot fill. Here's a great rural employer in Madison County, Advanced Super Braces. They have great jobs that will pay well in excess of up, $50,000 or more. In our region, that's a good paying job. Median wage in our four-county region is about $40,000. So rural and urban do share many of the same challenges. I would argue, first of all, and we always hear of the skills gap, and definitely there's a skills gap. There's a lot of skills I don't have, but I think, probably greater than that is really an interest gap. So we're prepared in many respects to train the workforce that our local employers need, but we have high demand, low enrollment programs at our community colleges. We have fewer job seekers visiting our NC Works career centers. And so our challenge is we don't have that pipeline to go into these really high demand sectors. So in the manufacturing, skilled trades, logistics, tech IT, there are other sectors, but in many of those cases, it's really an interest gap. And so what can we do to better make those opportunities be known to individuals? So, wanted to highlight a few great best practices throughout the state. So the folks in Burke County, they have a Work in Burke effort that they're trying to help people know there are good paying jobs in Burke County, and they're trying to retain their population to, you don't have to go to a big city to find a good job. Central Carolina Career Headlights, a partnership with the Central Carolina Workforce Board, several other workforce boards in the outside the Charlotte region. Mountain Area Careers is one of the things we're doing in our local area. Transylvania County is in the process of a Did You Know campaign. Transylvania County is a great example of, they had two large manufacturers that within a period of the late 90s, early 2000s closed, lost thousands of really good paying jobs. But today in Transylvania, there are many small manufacturers that have good paying jobs, but they're unable to find the folks to fill those talent pipelines. I didn't give a shout out to the workforce boards. I'm honored to be the director of Mountain Area. We have 23 workforce boards in North Carolina. I am the caboose of those workforce boards, so I am the low performer. We have some workforce directors here today, and they do amazing work. The governor has talked about this before, and there's an effort to create career pathways. So we now have 30 certified career pathways in North Carolina. And that's, so wherever you live in North Carolina, there's a career pathway that's been developed through employer leadership based on other criteria that I'll show you that is helping meet these high demand job areas. For the folks in McDowell County, they have a great effort they call the Talent Pipeline Committee. And I want to show you, one of the things we're working on in our area to try to make people aware of the opportunities of in our sectors. So we're doing this right now. We've done manufacturing, healthcare, and hospitality. So hopefully this will work. And if it doesn't, I was in school before the internet was invented.
Hot Springs really started as a tourist destination in the early 1800s and has continued that tradition to modern day. History is part of our current timeline. One thing that is always resounding to me growing up in Western North Carolina and Appalachia is my deep Appalachian roots. You're taught it in school and you're taught it through family and in all of our interactions that this place is part of who you are. That is what helps me excel in hospitality. I think that a lot of people think of hospitality as a stop before they decide what they want to do when they grow up. The myth in that is it is really a path of self-building that one can achieve. I have found that digging yourself into hospitality, wrapping your mind around that it is a career path that you can grow on is phenomenal. There's great opportunity. The sky is really the limit. The one thing about hospitality industry is it truly does promote within, and there's opportunities. That propels me to move forward. What can I do to get more people to the town of Hot Springs? What can I do to share this magical place with people from all over the world?
So as you can tell, I need to update my digital learning skills. I need to go to Rutherford County Schools. So we talked about our career pathway effort, and there's 30 career pathways that have already been certified through the NC Works Commission, and that's a very rigorous criteria. It's based on, are there jobs? So in our area, we have those 3 pathways in hospitality, advanced manufacturing, and healthcare. And so, you know, we were facing lots of misconceptions. In the case of hospitality, the argument is these are all low-wage jobs. There's no opportunity for advancement. And the reality is, even in Hot Springs, which is a very remote part of our region, and wonderful Madison County, you know, there are opportunities in that sector. And so it's driven by employers promoting collaboration, as Dr. Mitchell was talking about, articulation and coordination between K-12, community colleges, universities, other training providers, focused on work-based learning, because the reality is, you know, we learn most of what we do in life not inside a classroom, but in real life. We learn by doing. And entry points and exit points. So regardless, you know, it's not just for K-12 students, but the reality is most of us will have many jobs throughout our career. And when we're ready for that career change, whether it's voluntary or someone that we hit a wall where we're going, that we can do that. And so you see they're all across the state. Give a best practice, a shout out to the Northeast. They have, so what Dr. Mitchell was talking about, collaborations, they're doing it on steroids. They have 3 workforce boards. They have 3 universities, 11 career centers, 9 community colleges, 22 school districts, LEAs, 20 counties supporting career pathways in health sciences, advanced manufacturing, agri-science, and biotechnology, and business support services. Mentioned the McDowell Talent Pipeline, and Steve Lockett, Director of Regency Workforce Board, is here. And so we'll give credit to Steve for this, even though he was not the director when this happened, but we'll give him credit anyway. In McDowell County, almost 40% of the jobs in that county are in manufacturing, and those employers were struggling to meet their workforce needs. And so the employers got together and now have really created a wonderful partnership, and they won the Governor's Award for the Innovative Partnership at the NC Works Conference in 2017. So we have the interest gap. We have a math challenge too. So for the first time nationally, we have more job openings than we have job seekers. That's since the data started being collected in the early 70s. We know that's true in urban North Carolina, but that's also true in rural North Carolina, because all things being equal, rural communities tend to be older, so we know what the impact of an aging population is. We see places that have limited population growth or even declining population growth. So I think in the last year, 49 rural counties actually lost population. And also opioid crisis, other things that are impacting the workforce. In Wall Street Journal, and maybe communities in North Carolina need to look at this. There was an article not too long ago that instead of recruiting companies, communities are recruiting talent. And if you really believe, if you build it, they will come. Well, if we develop the talent in our community, then companies will come. And so in some cities, some communities, they will actually pay you to move there. So in our community, they'd probably pay me to leave, but that's another matter. So actually the skills gap is real, and a lot of people talk about that. If I was Superman, super person for one day, and we talked about Catherine in her presentation, there were some references to dual enrollment. North Carolina is a leader in dual enrollment, so the folks at Central Carolina Community College and Lee and Harnett County with their Central Carolina Works program really made a concentrated effort as a community to increase dual enrollment, increase post-secondary attainment. That has led to the legislature is providing some funding, and in some cases it's being picked up by local governments for what's called NC Works Career Coaches. So, and we have 37 work-ready communities certified across North Carolina. To me, this is the most scary statistic around, and this was referenced earlier. Of the 10 ninth graders, 8.6 will graduate from high school, highest graduation rate in history for North Carolina, but by age 25, only 3 will earn a degree. Really the change in the conversation needs to be, it's not about earning a 4-year degree, it's about obtaining that post-secondary credential. And so the average electrician makes more than the average college graduate. We know there's a great demand for electricians. Here's a picture of a young man that's an apprentice with advanced super braces, and he's going to make very good money. GE Aviation has a wonderful program with Haywood County with Pisgah High School about how they're bringing apprentices in for their machining program. So the new normal is working learners, and how do we support those working learners? And that's tough for a lot of people. If you think of someone working as a CNA, how can they, even if they have the academics to obtain their RN, if you work, working 40 hours a week, if you have child care, if you have family responsibilities, then going to school, how do we make that career pathway a reality for them? And so supportive services, I think our greatest barrier is really not the educational cost. It's the housing, the transportation, all those other things. For many of our employer sector work groups, they focus on that far more than even the education piece. So the reality is none of us can do this alone. We've got to collaborate. Mother Teresa said none of us, including her, ever do great things, but we can all do small things, and with great love and together, we can do something wonderful. So I will leave you with that. Feel free to contact me anytime. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter. I will be here throughout the conference, and I will now turn it over to Chris for the roundtables.